later, you'll be able to link it to the discussions that were held on this platform. Members, as indicated, our first item today would be item 6. Madam Twa, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we present to the members the reason for the updated reason for decision for the engine application for its operation of the license in Wentworth. You recall that in the previous meeting in October, the resolution was that the members did not grant the application as applied for. However, indicated that the engine applied for 2 separate licenses, and that the manufacturing license be released on the Wentworth facility before they can apply. So Ms. Munyabedi will just touch on the update on the RFD to align with that resolution that was made in the previous meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Mutwa, and good morning to the members and the colleagues. As the EM has briefly explained, this matter was discussed in the previous PPS. So because the decision not to approve the amendment application by Engine as was recommended, we obviously then had to revise the reasons for decision document so that it aligns with the final decision. So what we are requesting today is for the PPS to approve the revised RFD document, which is attached as Annex 1 and runs from page 15. I'm not sure if this will still be relevant anymore, but the points of clarity that was sought by the members at the previous PPS when the decision was made can be found in the table that runs from page 8 until page 12. So maybe let me just highlight some of the changes or the enhancements that we did on the RFD. So we have enhanced the background section, which now shows the connection between this facility, the Island View facility, and the South. Left the key issues as they were previously tabled. But what was changed within these elements of discussion was our concluding remarks on each of the sections. So, for example, the first key issue that talks to the enabling legislation to amend the license, there we actually detail that although we do have the power and the authority and the discretion to process the amendment as we have done, other sections of our Act only empower us to issue separate or combined licenses for facilities only if it is done through a new license application rather than an amendment of license condition as was applied for. We have also enhanced the section that looked at the truck traffic increase, which is detailed in paragraph 68 to 71, where we have basically interrogated the numbers and the assumptions again, and have amended that section accordingly. We have also enhanced the market section, particularly the part that addresses the potential impact of the NREV conversion of the storage market. And the discussion is detailed from paragraph 146 to 162, where we basically conclude that with the changing landscape, more research and discussions need to be conducted, and that policy and legislation will also need to be reviewed to promote these competitive markets. But overall, Chairperson, we have really just aligned the flow of the document so that it leads the reader to understand the concerns raised by NERSA in arriving at the decision not to approve the amendment as applied for. With that, Chair, I recommend that the PPS approve the revised RFD as attached. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Munyabedi. Can I get, before I request members to input, can I get an understanding, is this for approval here or is this for recommendation to ER for approval? Is this in our domain? And if so, why? Because I would have thought that application for licenses are dealt with at ER. If I could be guided, please.
It is for approval and it is within the delegation of the PPS. It is based on the asset evaluation of the facility. So it falls below 1 billion. So the PPS can decide on the matter.
Oh, okay. Can I? Okay, maybe can I? I'll actually reserve my comments. I'm just worried because we're looking at the number of tanks, the size of tanks, as well as the pipelines. It does seem to me incongruent, but nonetheless, it's you will respond to members. Maybe they may have something different to what my thinking would be. Members, the document is before us for questions, for comments. If I can see by show of hands, please. It is, after all, following a decision that we made the last time. So this is just an update of the RFD. Mr. Sibanda.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the team as well. Chair, I really don't have anything on the RFD. I think it's quite comprehensive and addresses most of the issues that we raised previously. I just have one issue that bothers me, and that's on the table of responses to members' questions and comments. I think that's response 19 on page 12 of 55, where we say competition assessments are out of the energy regulator's scope, and the rest of that comment. I know we had a discussion previously, and RSU also came in to provide guidance, but I'm just concerned that there seems to be probably some lack of alignment, or there's different understanding of what the regulator's role should be when it comes to competition matters. And I think we should really differentiate between a competition assessment that is done for regulation purposes and one that is done by the competition authorities following allegations of a breach of competition laws and all of that. So we are not precluded from doing a competition assessment. Actually, the work that we do involves most of the time, doing an assessment of competition and then putting in place measures to promote competition, to prevent probably anti-competitive conduct by licensees. So I'm a bit concerned, Chair, and maybe it's something that we need to take up at some point, because I think it's probably something that does not just relate to petroleum pipelines, but I think we just need to have a broader discussion on the role of NERSA when it comes to competition issues, probably in electricity and pipe gas as well, but broadly as a regulator. Because if you look at even at the RFD itself, from the paragraph that talks about market assessment, we do actually do some kind of competition assessment there. We even make a statement that competition appears to be relatively low to medium in the petroleum industry. That's on paragraph 158. So already we are doing that assessment. We talk about barriers to entry, we talk about third-party access and all of those things, which is part and parcel of a competition assessment. So to say that competition assessment is out of scope for the regulator is probably not accurate. And like I'm saying, perhaps we just need to have a broader discussion around the role of the regulator when it comes to these issues, Chair. Thank you. Otherwise, I'm happy with the RFD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Madam Massetti, your hand was up, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm covered. I think that was the substantive issue that I also wanted to raise, but Mr. Sibanda summed it up elegantly, and I'm covered with his points. Just on paragraph 6.2, Chairperson, I just need confirmation there that the storage tanks that we are referring to there are the ones that were previously licensed, not the ones that were in the application that we considered last month, just to be certain, Chairperson, that we are referring to the same thing, so that there is no misunderstanding that we may have given a go-ahead with regards to some of the tanks that were part of the application that we considered last month, which we did not approve. I just need to
get that clarification. Otherwise, Chairperson, I support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Massetti. Mr. Mtwa, as you and the team respond, I'd like to say thank you for the comment for the point raised on the chat, Mr. Untid. It is clarified. I guess for me, it was just the size of the tanks versus the value, especially if we include pipelines. But nonetheless, the point is made, so I'm covered. So over to you, Ms. Mnyobodi.
Thank you, Chair. I will just start with the comment from Ms. Massetti regarding the clarity on the tanks in paragraph 6.2. You are correct, Ms. Massetti. Those tanks and that capacity remains licensed, so it does not form part of the ones that were not approved by the PPS. So that license is intact and it's still in effect. And then I will just maybe hand over to Ms. Mutafetsi to maybe provide clarity on the competition assessments and what we have put in the submission. Thank you.
But before you do, I note Mr. Mtwa may want to add or to lead.
Yes, thanks, Chair. No, I think Mr. Sibanda has covered it. I think it was one of the resolutions last meeting. Mr. Mkhize did indicate that we need to have a workshop to discuss the role and also the capability of the energy regulator when it comes to competition. So I think that covers it in terms of that as PPR will follow up with capacity building section to ensure that there's a workshop organized in this matter, and we'll discuss and have clarity in terms of how far our role goes, or also maybe in terms of how we define, because it might be just a matter of defining in terms of assessment versus investigation. So I think maybe we can take it from there, that we will have a workshop on that debate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So, Ms. Mnyobodi, do you still believe that a colleague should still add, or are you covered?
No, we are covered, Chairperson. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And maybe just my 2 cents worth on this one would be to also indicate that I think that workshop is long overdue, because I guess the issue here is that the way some things are drafted in the Gas Act are fairly different to how they are drafted in the other acts. But also specifically in the petroleum sector, there is competition in the market and competition for the market sometimes. That needs to be well understood. For instance, in terms of electricity, for instance, all of those competitive biddings that may be had, and that's competition for the market rather than competition in the market itself. That needs to be well understood. And also some decisions where the regulator may decide that it's better to have one player rather than have many players. And the question is, although the regulator may be limiting competition in the market, the question is how to ensure competition. So that all of those issues, I think, need to be comprehensively dealt with at that workshop. Thank you. Madam Simane, you are covered. You don't have any comments, questions on this matter?
Thanks, Chair. No, I'm covered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. So with that, colleagues, can I then take you to the decision that is sought? And that decision is under recommendation, which are on page 14 of 55. The recommendation is for the PPS to approve, as it is within its area of delegation, to approve the reasons for decision documents attached here to as Annexure 1, following the decision of the 5th of October 2022 not to approve the amendment application. By show of hands, members, if we can approve that recommendation. Thank you, Ms. Simane. Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Thank you, Madam Massetti. I also support. So, Ms. Mtwa, you've got your decision. Thank you, ma'am. If we can move on to item 7, Ms. Mtwa.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Msomi will introduce this application. However, in front of us, we have the application for tariff by PetroSA in their petroleum storage facilities in Bloemfontein and Tzaneen for the period of 1 April 2022 to March 31st March 2024. Through you, Chair, Ms. Msomi.
Thank you. Please, Ms. Msomi.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Mtwa. The purpose of the submission is to request the PPS members to approve the tariff of 35.77 cents per litre for Bloemfontein Depot and 59.4 cents per litre for Tzaneen Depot for the period of 1 April 2022 to 31 March 2023, and a tariff of 36.34 cents per litre for the Bloemfontein Depot and 61.59 cents per litre for Tzaneen Depot for the period of 1 April 2023 to 31 March 2024, and approve the decision and the reasons for the decision document attached hereto as Annexure A. This is the PetroSA first tariff application for the enforcement facilities. It should be noted that PetroSA stores diesel, LPG, paraffin, and petrol products in these storage facilities. The assessment of the tariff application starts from page 8 of the decision and the reasons for decision document. The differences in the tariff applied for by PetroSA and those determined by NERSA are mainly due to the differences in the networking capital and work calculated by PetroSA and NERSA. The main reasons for the differences are discussed in the annexure of the RFD. And then the volumes projected by PetroSA for the period under review are shown in Table 5 of the cover submission. PetroSA indicated in its tariff application that volumes in its facilities have experienced a downward trend, with the Bloemfontein facility picking up in the 2023-2024 financial year, while the Tzaneen facility is projected to pick up in the 2022-2023 financial year. The volume analysis also takes into account the efficiency adjustment through the volume rules incorporated into version 5 of the tariff methodology. The team has also independently verified the projected volumes through the monthly volumes submitted to NERSA, which are compared with the latest estimate volumes provided by the licensee. We therefore recommend that the tariff applied for by PetroSA for the storage facilities be approved. Furthermore, we recommend that the PPS approve the decision and the reasons for the decision document attached to as Annexure A. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Somi. Members, you've got the document before us. Any questions, comments? It's pretty clear, but I'm not sure if there will be any comments. It doesn't look like there are any comments, Ms. Mtwa, or questions from members. The one thing that I would have, if it was possible, I don't know whether it was possible at all to see what the volumes were going through these tanks prior to the sale of these tanks to PetroSA. It would have been useful just for benchmark purposes. I think if you can, it doesn't affect the decision on this, but I think for to be able to see whether the comment made, for instance, in terms of decline or increase in volumes, it would be nice to have had a comparative size of product that went through both the Tzaneen depot and the Bloemfontein depots before they were sold, bought from BP and Shell, respectively. But other than that, that was just a comment, Mr. Mtwa. I don't think it deserves a response, but I think it would have been useful to have that comparative start, especially with the closure of DJP, to look at how that has impacted the volume going through the Bloemfontein depot. All right, members, can I take you to the decision that is sought? It is on page 12 of 39, paragraph 52, as indicated that we are required, PPS is requested to approve. Thank you, Ms. Mtwa, noted. It's to approve the tariffs of 35.77 cents for Bloemfontein depot and 59.4 cents per litre for the Tzaneen depot for the period of 1 April 2022 to 31st of March 2023, and a tariff of 36 cents per litre for the Bloemfontein depot and 61.51 cents per liter for the Tzaneen depot for the period of 1st of April 2023 to the 31st of March 2024, and approve the reasons for decision document attached here to as Annexure A. By show of hands, members, if we can approve those recommendations. Thank you, Madam Massetti. Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Thank you, Madam Simani. I also support that. Madam Twa, you've got your decision, ma'am. So let's move speedily to item number 8. Madam Twa.
Thanks, Chair. Item number 8, as you are aware that we have received the Transnet tariff application for its petroleum pipeline system for the year 2023-2024. This is a discussion document that will be published for comments by public and other stakeholders. I will request that Mr. Gaba assist in terms of introducing the discussion document. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Gaba.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, EM. Good morning, members. Just a brief overview. The tariff application before us from Transnet, Transnet is applying for an allowable revenue increase of around 81.69% compared to what was approved previously by the energy regulator in 22-23 financial year, for the 22 financial year rather. The allowable revenue applied for translates into an increase of 75.51% in tariffs in general, particularly the Durban to Outroad tariff, which will increase by 42.58 cents per liter, from 56.39 cents per liter to 98.97 cents per liter. The increase is predominantly due to an 8.29% increase in the return on investment, and this emanates from the increase in the RAB from the 2022-23 FY to this current application, and also a 29.85 increase in operating expenses applied for compared to the previous year. Also, the clawback amount that is applied for by Transnet in this application is an amount of around 3 billion, which consists of a deferred allowable revenue from the previous year, 22-23 financial year, of around 1.5 billion, and an amount of 800 pertaining to the risk sharing mechanism that was considered as part of the 2023 FY determination, 2020-23, 22-23 FY determination, as well as an amount of 300 million that was spread over 4 years, an allowable revenue that was deferred over 4 years from the 2020-21 FY. In order to solicit stakeholder comments, the energy regulator developed this discussion document, Chair, and provided a preliminary determination. However, it should be noted that we have since requested additional information from Transnet that will alter the final calculations of the preliminary determination as well. The discussion document goes into detail over the following issues. It does go into an overview of the tariff application itself, and also goes into detail over the regulatory asset base, as well as the prudency adjustments, the weighted average cost of capital, as well as elements of the clawback, also an analysis of the operating expenses, the volumes, as well as the tariffs. Above and beyond that, we've also we have discussion points to solicit comments from stakeholders on reports of incidents of theft incidents that have been prevalent, rather, on the pipeline as well, or the incidents reports that we received from Transnet as well. So we've also gone into a little bit of detail around those, as well as the concept of risk sharing that was introduced in the previous determination, which sought to distribute the risk of not achieving specific volumes between the licensee and its customers as well. And also, we have also gone into a little bit of a discussion around Transnet's application to include the intermixture refractionator plant into the REP, as well as the associated OPEX as well. With that said, Chair, the members are requested to consider and approve the discussion document on Transnet's tariff application for the 2023-24 financial year, and also to approve the publication of the discussion document as well as attached in NSJA. And would also like to note that when we were doing just a proofread, there were some typos a little bit. Then the document will be sent to the language editors before it is published. With that said, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gaba. Before I open this to members, by the way, is this a formal consultation? Is this a formal public consultation paper as per section 10 of the of NERA? If it is, shouldn't it have indicative timelines and so forth? I'm just trying to understand, Ms. Mtwa, is this a normal formal consultation papers, consultation document, or is this just a discussion document prior to that?
Chairperson, we do normally consult on a discussion document because we normally want to guide the public on questions that or concerns that we really want them to focus on. Maybe Mr. Kamrat, can you just touch on the timelines?
Thank you. And then I'm saying timelines, Mr. Gaba. I'm okay. Maybe can I clarify what my question is? Because as you normally do, is that once you've received this application, you put it through the public process prior to the document being or prior to the application being tackled by the PPS. Is this the formal part, or is there another one coming? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the timelines, this is part of, I think this is a formal part where after I think subsequent to receiving comments from the stakeholders, then the document or the RFD will be tabled in front of PPS again.
Okay.
In order for PPS to recommend to the energy regulator.
All right. Now, I guess maybe just again, just talk about the timelines, considering that this is November now. When are you intending to publish this document, and when is it closing, taking into account the actual proposal or the changes in the public comment process as presented at the RSC on Monday? Just to complete the input, Mr. Gaba, so that when members tackle this, it's a complete document.
Thank you very much, Chair. We have provided timelines as part of the discussion document. I think it's at the end of I think it's page 49 of the discussion document. But however, upon approval of the publishing in this meeting, then we will publish the discussion document as early as next week, Monday or Tuesday, in publications, where we'll offer the stakeholders 30 working days to submit their comments on the discussion document. And in terms of the timelines, it's expected that we will table to PPS in February.
Okay. No, thank you, Mr. Gawa. It's actually on page 48. Thank you. I didn't see it. My bad. Thank you for that, for the indications. For members, for the timelines, it's table 18 on page 48. So can I open it up to members now for inputs, for comments, for additions, for questions? Members, document is available to you, Madam Assetti.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity. Chairperson, I would like to start just on the process itself and the decision that is required from us today. I would like to suggest that we don't approve discussion documents because the position that is entailed in such documents is not the final position of the energy regulator. And I recall this committee actually some years back, 2016 or even prior to that, they were taken to task and were challenged by stakeholders simply because of the kind of decisions that we take, where we approve a discussion document as if it is the decision of the energy regulator or final decision of the energy regulator, and we had to then sort of explain that to stakeholders when we seem to be taking a different position when the matter now is finalized and comments have been incorporated and we take a final decision. So having said that, and I recall that the previous FTRM had to bring that matter to the subcommittee, we had to discuss it. And he indicated the challenge of approving discussion documents as opposed to noting the discussion document and then approve its publication for a stakeholder comment. So if I would like to suggest that instead of approving, the decision that we should be making is the decision of noting that assessment that is contained in the discussion document and then approve that such discussion document be published. So we approve publication as opposed to the discussion document itself. So if that is acceptable, Chairperson, it means we'll have to make changes on the recommendations as well as on paragraph 2 on the purpose, and also on paragraph 4.2, where we indicate that PPS is therefore requested to note not to approve the discussion document and then approve the publication thereof. So those are the changes, Chairperson, that I would suggest, given the comment that I made, as well as the potential challenge if we were to approve it as is. And then, Chairperson, coming to the content of this, I know that we're still taking it out there to stakeholders, but I would like to find out whether, because when we deferred the part of the allowable revenue, it was for a reason. So it is important also that if we now decide to reinstate, that first of all, we look at the criteria that we used at the time of making a decision, because this was a substantive decision that obviously affected also the parties, and also we were concerned about affordability on the part of customers and the impact at that stage. So it is not something that was simply done because we had to just defer a particular amount. Now, even when we now decide to reinstate, it's very important that we first satisfy ourselves insofar as whether or not this is now the time where that this amount be reinstated, if we now look at the impact that it will have, and whether the entire amount must be reinstated wholly into this allowable revenue. So I'm not getting the sense there in the analysis as to what was the rationale, the economic rationale of deferring that amount. What did we have in mind? And whether that now has been fully addressed and we are comfortable that the conditions or the market conditions are now conducive for this amount to be reinstated, and issues of affordability as well as other impact will not arise if that is the case. But it must come out of this. And if also that is the case, that we have made that assessment, let us put a question to stakeholders asking about that reinstatement of this amount. So that is my suggestion, Chairperson, for this aspect, as we're taking it out there to stakeholders for comment, if we can do that for enhancement. And then, Chairperson, I think also what is important here, I think, is the extent of the increase is quite massive. I mean, an increase of about 81%, almost 82% on the allowable revenue that we now, that is going to be translated into a higher tariff. That requires of us to look at the impact, as we have already shown it, in terms of the fuel price, first of all, and the economic conditions. So it will force the team to make an assessment, impact assessment, whether it's economic impact assessment that needs to be made, but also in affordability. And I think also issues of inflation will have to be considered there in the final document that will have to come to us. If they can also just make sure that the assessment is enhanced to have that economic assessment or economic impact assessment that features in the final document. I am concerned, Chairperson, about the increase in the OPEX. I think that increase is too much, Chairperson. If one looks at the period of even less than 12 months, all of a sudden we have 29.85 increase in the operational expenses. We must also remember that this is sort of a shared area, shared cost center, in the sense that people that are working in the division that deals with the pipelines, and they are also focusing on gas issues. So it's also very important there that we also assess possibilities of double dipping there, or duplication of cost there in this area, and maybe also it is an area, even if we were to allow a certain cost, that we flag it, even in the reasons for decision, to say that we allow for now, but it is subject to the audits that will be conducted. Because remember, we do have audits that we conduct in terms of the RRM project. So it is important that we, even in the RFDs later on, that if there are certain costs that we say, let us give them the benefit of the doubt, but that is subject to the audits that will need to be undertaken. And then when the audits come in the letter, we then make sure that we highlight these areas to the auditors when the CEO signs off the letter for the auditors to check this particular area and check issues of duplication or double dipping, and also the reasons for such an increase, what actually happened. But not only that, I think it also gives us an opportunity to find areas or identify areas that will require a Transnet to implement efficiency measures when it comes to these operational costs. So it's very important that we also flag it as an area where we want this regulated entity to apply efficiency measures. Because we cannot just implement such a huge increase on operational expenses. We will allow a licensee to recover its efficiently incurred cost as well as prudently incurred cost. But I think we need to sort of apply some red flags when we see such an increase being proposed. Chairperson, I think coming to the table on table 2, paragraph 6.5, I'm concerned about this issue of time value of money that we seem to reflect there because, you know, when the reason why we have so much of that allowable revenue, it was because of these clawbacks. And the clawbacks actually worked in favor of this entity because at times it will make some projections that it will bring in an asset at a particular point in time, and particular volumes are also overstated. And then that the period comes and they never achieve those projections. First of all, that they have not completed the asset that was supposed to be included in the RAP, and also even the volumes themselves. But at the end of the day, there will be a huge amount on the clawback to cover the throughput and the volumes. So it worked in favor of the entity and at the detriment of customers and other consumers, because it translates into a tariff that people then at the end of the day it comes to the fuel price. So this becomes a problem, because in the current situation and the way things go, that time value of money will never benefit customers, but will only benefit the entity itself, and it's an unnecessary addition to the cost here. So it's also something that we need to look at very carefully. I am not sure, first of all, why we have to consider it, whether even in the methodology allows for the inclusion or consideration of time value of money. Do we have such a thing in the methodology? And if it's there in the methodology, it will also be important to see how it balances the economic interest of customers, other stakeholders, as well as the entity itself. So we will have to respond to that concern in that manner. First of all, about whether it's in the methodology, and number two, how this will actually impact on other stakeholders, including customers themselves. So if we can consider it on that basis, Chairperson, I see that we have included it on the table, and if it will be important that we clarify the figures that we have there under that specific item, and what are those figures ascribed to, whether on there's a portion of the cost there that is ascribed to time value of money, and what is that cost? Can we unpack that, and so that we can be able to see what impact does it have, and also what is the amount that we will say it's an amount that has been calculated on the basis of time value of money, and why, and who for whose benefit is that amount. Chairperson, I would like to leave it at that, but I will also just request that the part on the operational expenses, if they can also be checked with GAR, but not just checking with the GAR on the basis of just consulting with GAR. We do have information that we have received. Some of that information, we checked it thoroughly, and there was some report from the auditors. So it's important on some of the cost items that fall under the operational expenses, if those specific items can be checked thoroughly, and the reasons that were given there, because we looked at it carefully there to also try and avoid issues of duplication. But they may come almost every year, and also issues of shared cost and cross-subsidization, which in our Act is also not allowed. If that can be checked, Chairperson, with the GAR team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Massetti. Mr. Sibanda?
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to Mr. Gaba and the team. Chair, on the operating cost table, table 11, so there's an increase in decommissioning, in the decommissioning provision, and we indicate that Transnet is to provide further explanation on this. I think it would be important to include a comment or to solicit a comment, include a question that solicits a comment from stakeholders around the decommissioning cost, but also on security, and this has been increasing over over time. And at some point, I think we need to start to see the positive impact of these investments in security upgrades, given the spike in security incidents over time. But I think these cannot continue to increase perpetually. At some point, I think we need to probably see some positive impact of that investment. So maybe we just need to then include or expand on the question regarding security and whether it's prudent to keep on increasing these over time. And then lastly for me, Chair, on the tariff smoothing scenarios, I think it will be helpful to solicit stakeholder comments or input on the impact of the smoothing scenarios on well, probably looking at the socioeconomic variables, but to also ask a question what the impact will be on the licensee itself. And I see that it's probably given the magnitude of the proposed increase, it's probably going to be a tough one. But I think it's important to probably just include a question that asks what the likely impact will be, not only from a socioeconomic perspective, but also on the licensee itself of those different scenarios. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Madam Simani.
Thank you, Chair, and also thanks to the presenting team. Chair, from my side, I think largely covered by what Madam Maset has put forward. What I just wanted clarity on is that in terms of our processes, are we duty bound to release the discussion document prior to the matters that she has raised being addressed? Or do we have the privilege to first address those, and then once we see that at least is something, or the requested increase is something that I would say has passed our own prudence test, then we can pass forward. I mean, we can pass it for public to discuss on. And if maybe I can draw attention, I think for me, when I was reading the document, I was also asking myself the question about the regulatory impact assessment, if we've got the privilege to do that. Then she also raised the same thing, because I think under the current economic conditions, to have such high increases is beyond abnormal. Then the other one also on the prudency of the operating costs. Then I think also I would love to see a confirmation from the auditors that the costs that are being requested have been prudently incurred. And also, I think I share her sentiment in terms of when a licensee comes and asks for higher than normal tariff increases, then when you grant those, even if it's not what is granted, then when the time comes for the clawback, the consumers don't necessarily benefit on the time value of money. Or is there something beyond, like people trying to pre-fund their businesses using those mechanisms? So for me, what I just need clarity on, so I do share her sentiments, but I do want to get clarity if we are duty bound to release or note the discussion document prior to this being addressed. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Mtwa, Mr. Gaba, if you can then address the questions posed by members, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will address some of the questions and then hand over to Mr. Gaba, and maybe Ms. Bogo can also assist. Maybe to start with the comments from Mr. Mani. Just on the process, what normally happens is that initially, when we receive the application, we then come to the PPS to indicate what has been applied for, and then ask for members' guidance in terms of issues that we need to focus on. And I think we've already done that. And then following that, we then go through the application thoroughly and sort of break down all the elements that have been applied for, and we think they are of concern for the public to make comments. And currently we are in that stage where we're just saying this is what has been applied for, and give some background in terms of what has been applied for, and then request members of the public to then make further input. But from now until February, we will then do proper analysis as NESA, and then look at different scenarios, as Mr. Sibanda has indicated, different scenarios of smoothing, or what the other option can be considered in terms of sort of cushioning the public in the increase, and also our colleagues from RAR will do the economic impact. So what I'm trying to say in short is that the analysis that Mr. Mane is requesting will be then presented to the PPS in February, when we have done the full consultation, and we have done finalization on all the models and what as NESA we consider as acceptable and not acceptable as per the methodology and what the law empowers us to do. So we will come back with the full analysis with all the guidance that we got. And I think from Ms. Maseti, we received further guidance today in terms of other matters that we need to look at, and we will then consider that as we do our further analysis going forward. Maybe I'll leave it at that, and then maybe Mr. Kaba, you can then comment on other comments that have been raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I think I should note Mr. Sibanda's comments in terms of the decommissioning costs. And this has been part of the additional information that we have requested from Transnet as well. And we received it on Friday last week, and we're busy with the assessment as part of the OPEX due diligence on our side as well as information regarding security costs, because these were part of the additional information request we had on our side for extensive explanation, and just for them to unpack and certain questions we had around those items as well. And we do note your questions that you must add around the tariff smoothing as well. With regards to Ms. Maseti's input, in terms of the deferred amounts that were reinstated, I think in terms of the energy regulators decision of that's the 2022-23 decision, we had stated that the deferred amount would then be reinstated upon reaching a few milestones, but we weren't specific in terms of the RFD. However, we had stated that it would be the deferred amount would be rated over 5 years. Transnet in this application decided to reinstate the entire amount, but in our assessment, then we would stick to the decision that was by the energy regulator. In terms of so that will go into our full analysis as part of our full analysis and our final assessment, if I may put it that way. In terms of the impact, the economic impact assessment, it's also done with the help of RAR, and it will look into the effects of the increases as well as NESA's final determination into inflation as well as other socioeconomic categories in terms of job losses and impact on jobs in the country, as well as other issues as well. But we will be extending it to accommodate the members' comments as well. In terms of OPEX, we did have an extensive, like as we had noted, we did have an extensive additional information request regarding that, and also note that we will be working in conjunction with the Guard Division as well in order to conduct proper analysis of this item in light of the extensive increase in this item as well. And we would like to note that the element of time value of money is part of an item that we have included in terms of the methodology, of the pipeline methodology that is being updated. We have looked into the disallowance of time value of money as part of the clawback itself, and also considering the impact that it has, clawback analysis, allowable revenue. So it is something that we can.
Sorry, Chairperson, to barge in. I can hardly hear Mr. Gaba. I'm not sure whether stakeholders are also benefiting from his explanation if the voice is so down like this. I can't hear him. Thank you.
My apologies, Chair. Hope I'm audible now.
Yeah, if you can just still raise your voice a little bit. You are indeed a bit on the low side. Thanks.
Okay, maybe if I can.
Yeah, we can hear you. Now we can hear you. Please proceed. We can hear you now.
Okay, maybe if I can proceed from the consideration of a time value of money. In terms of the pipeline methodologies that is to be updated this year, we have included an element of disallowing the consideration of time value of money in the clawback calculation by licensees. So it is something that we are looking into, and we will be doing a write-up in terms of this application as well, just to solicit members' views in terms of this item. And I don't know what I've written. I think that's it from my side.
Well, we have not addressed the first issue, both yourself and the issue of approving. Are you in agreement with Madam Massetti in terms of what the recommendation should be? That we should not approve this document. It should be noting this document and approving its publication.
Chair, I think I note Ms. Massetti's or the members in this side, and we will duly amend.
Okay. Can I just ask one question before we move on? Timing. I'm concerned about the timing. So it's a timeline we've addressed is on that page, which I think you should bring up forward. But it's the timing. Anything that happens in the dead month of December and the early month of early parts of January, I'm not sure whether it's fair. I don't know what you guys think of it.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, Ms. Mutari, you can go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead, Ms. Mutari.
Yes, indeed, we always have a challenge with this application because of the time it's submitted and the time it's required to be approved, being the end of Feb, because the decision is used by the Department of Mineral Resources, so we need to finalize. So what we normally do is that we do try and skip the days where most of the colleagues or the industry is closed between the 15th of December and 15th of Jan. As a result, our public hearing is planned for the 20th of January. So we do consider those days. So it's become an extended consultation process. But what we also try and do is that we also target stakeholders in terms of having a targeted discussion and receiving comments. And we're also already in the process of meeting the different ministers to present what has been applied for and have a discussion with them. So we always try our best to be out there in terms of consultation process because of the timing. Because all the time this application is received at around this time, and that sometimes we always expect the application to be received on the 1st of August, but we always have challenge with the Transnet submitting a month or two later. However, we are required that by end of February should have finalized. So it is very tight, but we always try our best to make sure that we extend ourselves to to the stakeholder and make sure that we are not active between the time where we consider a holiday time and then have our public consultation, public hearing mid-January. I don't know if that will assist, Chair, but yeah, it is our challenge indeed. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Mtwa. With that, members, can I take you to the recommendation as amended? So on 14.1, again, Ms. Masetti, if you can assist me in correctly verbalizing the recommendation. That the recommendation is that for the PPS to consider and note the discussion document on the Transnet SOC Limited's Petroleum Pipeline Systems Tariff application for 2023-24 financial year, and to approve the publication of the discussion document for public comments with all of the amendments that have been proposed by, or the enhancements that have been proposed by members, with the confidential information withheld as attached here too as Annexure A. I hope I've captured it correctly. Thank you, Madam Masetti. In that case, members, can I see by show of hands if you can approve that recommendation? Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Thank you, Madam Simane. Thank you, Madam Masetti. I also support. So, Ms. Mtwa, you've got your decision, ma'am, on item 8. If we can then speedily proceed to item 9, the prudency assessment. Ms. Mtwa?
Yes, Chairperson, they must also just consider some of the questions that I've put on the chart. It will be useful. Yes, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. So it's all those enhancements, Mr. Gaba, to consider those as some of them that are actually on the chat, and also those that have been raised by members, including all of the auditing and relation and your engagement with GAR. Okay, Ms. Mtwa, if you can look at item 9, please.
Thank you, Chair. Item 9, Dr. Kalu will assist in terms of introducing that. It is a follow-up from the previous report that we had the last meeting in October. Oh, I muted myself, sorry. Dr. Kalu will assist in terms of introducing that report, which is a follow-up from the previous report on the prudency assessment that is currently ongoing on Sunrise Energy. Dr. Kalu, if you can just quickly come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mtwa. I would like to start by greeting members, management, colleagues, and stakeholders in general that are attending the meeting. This is report number 2 on the Sunrise Energy Prudence Review. As Madam Mtwa indicated, report 1 was submitted, was discussed during the PPS of the 5th of October, which was dealing with the procurement processes. This report 2 is dealing with the review and assessment of the cost escalation at the Sunrise Energy facility. I must also state that we are not yet at the stage of quantifying the imprudent amount, but all these steps that we are taking is in terms of trying to map the information up until the stage of quantification. But also want to bring to members' attention that the report 2 that I've got is revision 1. We have since received revision 2. But having received revision 2, what is important is that the key issues remain. There might have been changes in terms of the contract that have been analyzed, but the key issues, which I'm going to discuss in a few minutes, remain the same. It was going to be difficult in terms of replacing revision 1 with revision 2 because the submission itself was already with the RSU. And then it would have meant revising some text as well on the submission itself. But maybe just to touch base on the key changes with the revision 1, which members have got, a total of 11 contracts had been analyzed out of 52. But with the revision 2, a total of 16 contracts have been analyzed. And based on those 11 contracts, the key issues remain the same. What are the issues? maybe before I get to the issues, in terms of the scope, there is an error in terms of paragraph 5.2.3 on page 2 of 74. Maybe the better version of the scope is under section 1.1, page 18 of 74. But what are the key issues? The key issues is in terms of document availability. That's the first part. The second part is in terms of discrepancies. Sort of in terms of, you find that the documents that are submitted, there are differences in terms of that. Maybe just to add, there was a site visit that was conducted on the 3rd of November. Those that were part of that site visit, we could have got attention that even the total product cost that has been shared with the NESA team is totally different from what was presented at that stage. Those are the discrepancies that we're talking about. But in terms of solution, how to deal with those key issues, we have given Sunrise a deadline of 30 November 2022 to provide all the documents that are required to assist in terms of doing the project. If those documents are not submitted by the date yet, what's going to happen? When we do the determination of imputed amount, it's going to have two components. The first component will be based on the submitted document. And then the second component would be based on documents that were not submitted, subject to making them available. But what happens, what also is important is that when we receive a report from our consultant, what we do, we sort of follow a parallel process in terms of activity that has to take place because of the tight timelines. For instance, whilst commenting on the report, we also prepare a PPS submission. On the other hand, we also arrange the technical team meeting, because on the technical team meeting, we have to sort of come up with a discussion document that's going to be used in terms of engaging with Sunrise Energy, because we don't give them the report itself, and up until we get to that stage where there is a full report. But we have some extract pertaining to that. We also have to arrange a steering committee meeting. So we do certain things in parallel. But having said that,
Sorry, Chairperson, I'm trying to avoid a situation where we divulge so much of the internal processes, and sometimes that might be a challenge in terms of how this is articulated here, in terms of how we will get to the decision. If we can limit the information regarding the approach and also the internal processes, Chairperson, for governance, not necessarily for the public meeting. Thank you.
And also, Dr. Keller, perhaps let's take the report as read, number one. Number two, just pick up the highlight things that some of the highlights that you want members to actually note. Thanks.
Thank you for the guidance. The report as it stands, the members would still have the opportunity to comment on this particular deliverable at a certain stage, because it's constantly changing due to information that is being submitted. But based on the 16 contracts that have been analyzed, a total of 10 have been flagged, but there is no conclusion pertaining to that because of this still outstanding information that has to take place. But there will be a face-to-face meeting that's going to take place in terms of discussing all the issues with the licensee pertaining to that. Having said that, I would like the members to note the report too.
Thank you, Dr. Kolo. Thank you, Dr. Kolo. I think for me, having been part of the team that visited Sunrise Energy. I do believe that there is a lot of merit, and I do quite understand that some members of PPS couldn't attend. But those of us that did attend, I think Mr. Sibanda will attest to this. It was a very valuable experience, and I think it assists a lot in decision making. And where possible, you should actually do this. And I was just wondering why we didn't when we were in Durban, when we were considering the engine application. I just wonder why we didn't actually visit the facility, because the facilities. Because it makes decision making, it puts context in terms of that decision making. And I really appreciate that. Thank you. But over to you, members. We've got the report before us. It is for noting, considering all of the issues, that it's a version 1. There's another one that is already arrived. So yeah, it is for noting. So members, any comments, questions, guidance? By show of hands. Dr. Kolo, it seems like you've done a good job in presenting it, and the members do have a copy of this report. Mr. Sibanda, your hand is up.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I do note the report, and it is an ongoing process. I'm just wondering, to the extent that the documentation that's required, or the information that's required, is not forthcoming, and I'm not sure how Dr. Polo, will respond to this without necessarily, as Ms. Massetti indicated, divulging, too much information to the public. That is not necessarily supposed to be out there. But my concern is what then, in the event that the documentation or information is not forthcoming. Perhaps it's something that I don't know, the team needs to apprise the committee of, the various risks that this might pose. But like I said, it's probably not something for public consumption, but just an internal issue that the team needs to. Well, I suppose probably something that they are considering in any case. But for the benefit of the committee, I think, because for me it's quite concerning that it would appear that key information or documents are not available. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Dr. Polo, if you can just respond to that, taking into account the guidance by Madam Massetti.
Thank you. I'll be at a high level. What we're going to do, when we get to the quantification stage in terms of how much is the imputed amount, in terms of arriving at that, the first component of the imputed amount will be based on all the contract that's been received and the underlying document. So where we'll be sure this amount is imprudent. And then the second aspect of it will be based on documents that have not been submitted, subject to providing those documents. But that will sort of happen at some stage. Maybe let me not go into detail pertaining to that. But we are aware of that, and yeah, we're going to take care of it when we get to quantification stage.
So in essence, what you're saying is that you consider the risk, and you've got you do have contingency approaches in terms of how you deal with information that you did not get from the documents that you did not receive. Correct. You do have
correct. Okay. As well as Sunrise is sort of assisting in terms of that. There are certain things that are unfolding in terms of assisting.
Thank you. I'll note your comment as well, Mr. Mtwa, on the chat. if members can look at that as well. Thank you, considering a different approach. Thank you. All right. With that, members, if I can then take you to the decision that is sought, is on page 10 of 74. It's paragraph 15.1. It is recommended that the PPS notes the prudency review report. Is it 2 or 1, by the way, Dr. Gram? It's report 2.
It's report 2, correct.
It's report 2 on the review and assessment of the cost escalation of the Sunrise Energy facilities attached here to as Appendix 1. Members, by show of hands, can we note that? Thank you, Mr. Sibanda, Madam Assetti, Mr. Mani, I also note. Thank you. With that, it brings us to the end of the open session of our meeting. And with that, I'd like to thank the public who may have joined us from various platforms, NESA platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and all other platforms that NESA may be using for engaging and contacting or engaging with stakeholders. We'd like to thank you all, stakeholders, and hopefully you have gained something from this, and also it assists you in terms of reading our documents later on once those documents have been published. Mr. Mateja, if we can now stop the live streaming. And see by show of hands, one by a thumb. I can't see your thumb, Mr. Mateja.
We are off, Chairperson, you can continue.
Thank you, Mr. Mateja. So, members, if we can now go into the closed session.